Kara, thank you. Well, over the weekend, the nation celebrated Juneteenth and Freedom Day, commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. The federal holiday celebrates the day that the last remaining slaves in the United States officially learned that they were free. Fox News correspondent Lauren Green spoke with two pastors about what the holiday means.
Juneteenth commemorates the day news of emancipation reached the slaves in Galveston, Texas, the last ones to hear that they were free. However, some feel this country is still grappling with the reality of what it means to be truly free and equal. But two Christian ministers are working to find common ground at the birthplace of the civil rights movement.
Alex asked me, is he a racist? Do I think he's a racist?
Odell Cleveland and Alex McFarland are both pastors and sons of the South who grew up during the violent years that brought integration. It was here in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Woolworth lunch counter in 1960 that 4 black college students defied segregation laws and sat down asking to be served. Today, that counter is still here. The building now the International Civil Rights Museum.
We came here so many times when I was a child. I've eaten right along these seats.
I wasn't allowed to eat at this counter. So when we talk about Juneteenth and moving forward and where we go to, so now you and I could sit down and eat together. We could break bread together.
Alex and Odell formed a friendship 2 years ago, vowing to ask the hard questions about where we are in race relations nearly 160 years after the Civil War ended, believing that their shared faith is strong enough to bridge the chasm of their cultures.
We just don't want to offend, but we definitely want to make people comfortably uncomfortable.
Greensboro played a pivotal role in the Civil War. Following the Union Army's capture of Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate president and cabinet members fled south, stopping in this hamlet where they held a series of secret meetings. It's believed that near this spot, a decision was made on April 13, 1865, to end the war. President Jefferson Davis knew the Confederate Army was defeated, that slavery would end, and lives would be changed forever. But ending the war, surrendering to the Union, proved much easier than winning peace.
But emancipation only meant that formerly enslaved persons were free, that they were not in bondage to other persons. It settled nothing about their status in the community.
One of the most contentious disagreements Odell and Alex have is over reparations, paying the descendants of slaves for the free labor of their ancestors.
You don't resolve an injustice with another injustice. For someone who never owned slaves to pay to someone who wasn't a slave.
My good friend Alex would say, hey, I didn't own any slaves. You know, that's what I get a lot of times. But when I go back and said, we can't move past it, we can't go around it, let's move through it together. And moving through it together is a way that we can understand.
The two agree that when people do the right thing, momentum builds quickly, and they're working together to do their part. Both say Juneteenth is a day all Americans should celebrate because slavery is an evil that demeans all people because they're all made in God's image. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine.
Well, there were plenty of big celebrations for Juneteenth here in Southwest Virginia over the weekend. Last night, the Old City Cemetery in Lynchburg dedicated its Pathway to Pride to local African American history. The brick walkway is lined with historic paintings telling the stories of African Americans who are buried at the cemetery. One guest says he was excited to learn more about Black history in Lynchburg.
We need to understand our history. And in order to understand it, we have to really be active and try to go ahead and find out what actually happened before so that we do not make those same mistakes in the future.
Well, Old City Cemetery has the largest number of African American burials in Lynchburg. Since the cemetery opened in 1806, it's been the burial site of about 13,000 Black people, both enslaved and free.
Also happening in Lynchburg, the Academy Center for the Arts hosted a celebration for Juneteenth. The Juneteenth Coalition of Central Virginia held its Story Behind the Celebration event with different acts and performances. Well, the 9-year-old storyteller Joshua Clemens was one of those people featured there. He read a book that he wrote himself about Juneteenth and says it's important that all Americans know their true history.
Juneteenth is important to me because it's when my ancestors were freed, and if my ancestors weren't freed, then I wouldn't be freed.
Juneteenth is about family and culture, and it's about history. The main thing is about learning about our history.
And this is the second time Juneteenth was recognized as an official federal holiday. President Joe Biden signed the legislation last year to mark this event.